Hello, my name is Keltus, I'm the last Westerner, and in this short video we shall explore the topic of sleep paralysis and my personal experiences with sleep paralysis and the accompanying hallucinations known as hypnagogic or hypnagogic hallucinations, depending on whether they appear during waking up or falling asleep. In short, sleep paralysis is an affliction during which the brain keeps the body muscles paralyzed as during the normal REM sleep, but is not in the sleeping stage itself. So the person is somewhat conscious but cannot move his body. This state can last around several minutes, after which the person falls back into sleep or the paralysis passes and he stays awake. This affliction is very often accompanied by vivid hallucinations, both visual and oral. Oral as in you hear them actually. Especially the latter are extremely common during falling asleep. Almost everyone can recall more or less comprehensible voices heard inside one's head just before dozing off, as if some previous dream tried to catch up with us. At least I remember such instances. The source of all those hallucinations is the increased brain activity experienced during the transitory stage of falling asleep or waking up from a sleep. During hypnagogic and hypnopompic stage, that is, falling asleep or waking up, human brain works like a madman. Its activity far exceeds that of waking or sleeping stage, including REM sleep. This is the reason such an overactivated brain creates hallucinations, or at least it is the explanation for it. The most common visual hallucination, the one immortalized in folklore and mythology of all people on the globe, is the nightmare, literally, a nightmare. A demon which comes in the night to a sleeping man, appears near the bed, sits on man's chest, and suffocates the paralyzed, hapless victim, also known as the old hag, or as kikimora or zmora in Slavic folklore. In Polish poetry we had a poem Duszołek, Suffokas, a combination of Polish words for suffocation, strangling, and an animal, the horse family. And it referenced a folklore figure of a demon attacking a traveler during his nap. So, indeed, a man who is in the stage of falling asleep when grasped by the sleep paralysis, he is quite aware of his surroundings, he sees them with his eyes, which he can still move around, so he can see the room, the bed, the walls, the ceiling, the furniture in the room. But the brain superimposes its own creations upon the visual nerve signals, combining images from the eyes with the images from the depths of subconscious memory in a sinister fashion. And it is all boosted by brain's insane overactivity at this stage, which may last for several minutes. So, but why the nightmare? Why the vision of a chest-sitting, strangling creature? I guess it is triggered by the stiffening of the body muscles in preparation for entering the sleep phase, or stiffening already during the sleep, during waking up, so the overactive brain combines all the sensory data from the body, which is stiffened, and synthesizes a dreamy hallucination of a threatening figure, which literally suffocates the sleeper by the very way of its body hulking on one's chest. It also produces emotions of fear, helplessness, and madness during this imaginary demonic attack, precisely because of the stiffened muscles. In the absence of paralysis, this hypnagogic activity would probably produce different hallucinations, which I shall testify to in a moment, when I will tell you about one of my experiences. The brain's activity supposedly is stimulated by a substance, DMT, which is produced in the pineal gland, although it wasn't ever proven. During the normal REM sleep phase, DMT is supposedly responsible for dreams, and those dreams are required for normal and healthy functioning of human organism. So deprived of REM sleep, human would die after just a few days. However, during the pre-sleep phase, DMT is produced in extreme amounts, and if the brain does not fall asleep, at that very moment we are bombarded with hallucinations produced by the very hallucinogen our own bodies made. So why would the brain not go to sleep at that very moment of this bombardment of DMT? Reasons can be many. They include stress, fatigue, a different place we sleep at, etc. They all may be contributing factors, and the key moment, I guess, of reckoning, the key moment when you can actually get paralyzed and be conscious of it, is the one in which we, when trying to fall asleep, experience something of a feeling of falling down while lying in bed. Sometimes you get this feeling, right, when you fall asleep? Produced by our cerebellum, which falls asleep much faster than the brain proper, and we experience this falling down feeling, and if during this particular moment we startle, this may trigger the sleep paralysis incident. It happened to me, because the muscles are already being paralyzed at this very moment of falling down. The feeling of falling down is produced by stiffening of the muscles and the cerebellum going to sleep, as I said, while the brain at that very moment gets a kick from our consciousness of feeling startled by falling down. I guess it's clear. Of course, it does not explain the sleep paralysis during waking up. Perhaps it involves startling within a dream. Inception, anyone? I mention it because advanced so-called oneironauts, sleep travelers, are able to enter sleep paralysis at will by inducing it and overcoming all fear associated with hallucinations. Therefore, there may be actual tips for how to induce oneself into sleep paralysis when one wishes to. Think about lucid dreaming or out-of-body experience groups to look for. So I will tell you now about my personal experiences with sleep paralysis in my recent years. So back in 2009, I had two major instances of sleep paralysis and accompanying hallucinations, which I shall describe here briefly. The first one happened after I got back home from work, doing quite a sprint to make it before the rain, but I still got wet. I ate tomato soup with noodles and just dozed off immediately. The nap was very light. I instantly entered REM phase, in which I woke up inside the dream, got up from bed in the dream but was unable to walk, so I levitated. Notice, false awakening, levitation. Sounds kinda like astral travel. So I levitated through the apartment to another room and sat on an armchair. And then suddenly I felt the emanation of something evil. Something was definitely not okay. I looked around and I saw a multitude of spiders coming down around me from the ceiling. Bam! I woke up again, and at that very instant, this time for real, I was paralyzed in my bed and I felt a touch hallucination. I felt a touch, basically, of something crawling up my legs. Something heavy and crushing. I couldn't make myself move my head towards it because I was paralyzed, so I only beheld this thing with a corner of my eye. With my own eye, I partly beheld
a black belt sitting on my stomach.
a black body which started to jump and ride me like a mount. I was unable to direct my eyes towards its face, fortunately, but its body, the part I was able to behold, was just horrifyingly terrible, as if it came straight out of Shadow over Innsmouth by H.P. Lovecraft, from the depths of
Yantley,
the home of the Deep Ones. Although the skin of this creature was black as a black magma in a dungeon. And suddenly the paralysis went away. The hallucination disappeared. I only felt the trembling of my body slowly receding, and I rose up covered with sweat. I am certain that my body reacted to that unholy, nightmarish ride as if it was real. So to reiterate, after intensive physical exhaustion, sprinting, after eating a dose of carbohydrates, noodles in a soup, right before taking a nap, the effect of this was an uneasy, light sleep with a false awakening inside the dream, produced by brain's overactivity. Astral levitation, feeling of something evil, and waking up paralyzed, and immediate attack by the nightmare. This was my first such vivid experience with sleep paralysis and hallucinations, and the next incident came after half a year. I cannot recall any special circumstances before the incident. The attack happened in the middle of the night. I felt something of a launching of my body from the bed to the floor, after which I experienced a satanic tempest, rocking my body all over the floor. It all was all inside a dream, but I found myself on the floor of my room, of my bedroom, inside my dream. And I heard a cannonade of thundering sounds, screams, blasts. After a short while it all disappeared, and I found myself woke in bed, my own bed, woke, but paralyzed, and opposite me, against the window,
a horned god, Heron, the hunter.
I beheld him with a feeling of awe, bewilderment, and fear. I noticed his horns, from which something like two children hung, undead, condemned children with skin looking like an armchair's leather. The children were whispering something, and I fancied that I recognized ancient Akkadian. At first I wanted to strike the horned god with a pillow, but being paralyzed I couldn't move, so I decided to astrally forward my arms toward the children. And indeed, they noticed my attempt and started to reciprocate with their own leathery arms toward me. And as our hands met, I felt extreme cold touching one of their hands. Suddenly the vision disappeared in an instant, and the horned god became what it really was, a plant on the window pane, which in the moonlight against the window looked like a horned creature to my hyperactive brain on DMT. Insane, right? No drugs involved, only my own personal DMT produced in my own body, my own brain. Since then I have had no notable and scary incidents like that. Sometimes I experienced something like a loud scream during falling asleep right next to my ear, which broke me from falling asleep but did not produce paralysis. But several years later I experienced something different though. I had a dream that I was returning from woods on my bike, but when nearing home, I sensed there was something terribly wrong, as if something in the structure of my apartment building was off. Climbing the staircase, I noticed that the walls were kinda oblique. In fact, everything was oblique or geometrically transformed in the building in a way I did not recognize it. It produced an instant feeling of horror, of terror of disorder. Immediately, I woke up, but I was not paralyzed, and it was already morning light, so I could see the room, and then I saw a huge spider running up on the wall over me. I jumped from my bed and I was looking at the spider. I took a look from various angles and it was crawling down in my direction. It was so close I could touch it. But it also started turning more and more transparent, and finally it disappeared right before my eyes. It was pure hypnopompic hallucination, albeit without accompanying paralysis, the result of DMT residue in the brain, overproduced during the last terrifying stage of the dream with disordered staircase. The terror which triggered the onset of hallucination was produced by the disorder in ecumena. I interpreted it this way. Ecumena represented by my home in the apartment building, and the threat to that home, to my ecumena. I guess it has to be one of the primal fears haunting our ancestors in their time, when they feared getting back from mammoth hunting to their homes, to their caves, and seeing them ravaged or demolished by either natural disaster or an attack, with their female tribesmen and children killed or taken into slavery. Anyway, the spider hallucination is also interesting. After I read more about it, it seems that many people experience such hallucinations after waking up. Especially abrupt waking up from a bad dream may produce exactly such images of spiders. Some people see snakes or even centipedes. I reckon it has to be another primal fear, evolutionally imprinted memory to safeguard us against wild, venomous creatures which we should always avoid instinctively, like spiders, poisonous snakes, and the like. In a dream, they are combined with a feeling of evil and uneasiness, and they may trigger sleep paralysis if we get startled enough to wake the brain up. Or not. Okay. Since that spider incident, I have not experienced anything new worth of note, not in a case so vivid and strange as the ones I described here. My mind has become accustomed to such experiences, I guess. Or maybe the reptilians decided I am no longer viable for life-sucking of my ethereal essence. It is curious though, because I read that people who took DMT in the form of an ayahuasca drink and experienced visions while being under the influence of the drink, awake, often recalled that they saw large humanoid lizards which told them that they were the real masters of this world, those lizards. Lizards, reptilians, the serpents from the paradise. Perhaps the Bible was authored by a guy who took a dose or two of ayahuasca, or had a sleep paralysis hallucination and interpreted it for an angel talking to it, or a snake. This may be the case. The lucid dreaming connection is also worth exploring. By the way, I am not Styx Hexenhammer 666, and I am not interested in the occult. I'm only interested in physiological explanations. I can recall one incident again from 2009, when I read a lot about inducing lucid dreaming via sleep paralysis, and so I ate a lot of bread before taking a nap, to consume a lot of carbohydrates. as they seem to be really influencing the physiology of how the brain works. The paralysis indeed took on, and I was attacked by an apparition of a small lizard-like thing combined with a pterodactyl right on my bed. And this creature started chewing on my leg, and according to this oneironautic lore of those dream travelers, such a creature could be a bot, a harmless guardian at the gate of sleep, behind which lies the austral world of limitless lucid dreaming. So the key is to defeat the bot and cross the gate. That would make a huge step towards reaching lucid dreaming world, but unfortunately I just woke up from the paralysis and the bot disappeared. The chewing on my leg thing was just a sensory perception of frost, of cold, biting on my uncovered leg during the nap. So, the fascinating world of sleep hallucinations, lucid dreaming, astral world and DMT is interesting indeed, although I always considered these topics from a rational point of view, physiology of the brain, and not esoterics, not the occult, not demon possession, not a visitation by a devil, and the fucking stuff like that. And no alien abductions either. So I hope that my watchers, no, how do you call it? My public, yeah. The people who watch me will share their sleep paralysis experiences with me and will tell us about their hallucinations and nightmares during these sleep paralysis incidents. Those who haven't yet experienced sleep paralysis or don't recall any details will manage to get a sleep paralysis thanks to those tips I gave you, strong physical exhaustion, a lot of carbohydrates before sleeping. And you may also remember more details the next time. I recommend intensive physical exhaustion, eating a lot of bread, and don't be afraid. It is all in your head. Explore. Good luck with your sleep demons. Last Westerner out.